They see Emma Pillsbury on Glee and think that they've seen it all. Well, you haven't. Let me be the first one to tell you, you haven't. Hey Pixel friends, it is your girl PixelChixSimmer here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have another video for you guys. Sorry if my voice is kind of going in and out. I've been talking a lot the past couple days, but I'm going to try to keep it together because I have a video that I really wanted to share with you guys. I feel like it's really important to share. So I decided I'm going to go on here and do it anyway. Yeah, in all seriousness, I just wanted to get on here and talk about something that's kind of close to home. It's kind of close to home for me. If you guys don't know, I do actually have OCD, which is which stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. So a lot of you may have heard this before. A lot of you probably heard it in casual discussion before. I just wanted to come on here and kind of like talk about it in depth a little bit more because oh, I didn't realize my mouse was on the screen. I just wanted to come on here and talk about it a little bit more in depth because there's a lot of things that I didn't know about OCD, and that is the exact reason why for 9 years I literally sat there and for 9 years didn't know I had OCD. I had no clue, and I just felt like I was the only person in the world act like going through something like this, and I just thought I was just crazy basically. So I just want to talk about some of the symptoms you may have, some of the misconceptions of OCD, and just like maybe share a little bit of my life story with you guys. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, so first things first, I just want to address like what the actual definition of obsessive compulsive disorder is. I guess it'd be helpful to just have a definition out there, a nice Merriam-Webster, Google.com definition for you guys, because it kind of sets the precedent. It kind of lets you know really what it's about, but it doesn't exactly hit all the spots. It doesn't exactly tell you exactly what OCD is really like and what it's about and how it affects you and other people around you that know you if you have OCD. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with the definition. So I looked up OCD on Google. It was actually kind of hard trying to find a good definition for it because the first one I looked up actually just said that it's short for obsessive compulsive disorder. And I'm like, yeah, we kind of already know that. We wanted a definition, Google. That's what we were looking for. But anyways, I finally found one, and this comes from... Where does it come from? Oh, it's from Mayo Clinic. So here's the definition. It says OCD is expressed by excessive thoughts, obsessions that lead to repetitive behaviors, which are compulsions, and obsessive compulsive disorder is characterized by unreasonable thoughts and fears and obsessions that lead to compulsive behaviors. So it's basically the same thing twice, but that really just covers the basis of it. That's pretty much true. I'm just gonna knock a few balls out of the park right here. First things first. One misconception about OCD is that you have to have both the obsessions and the compulsions. That's not true. There is something called pure OCD, which you really only have the intrusive thoughts, and you don't actually do any compulsions. Now you may do like some mental compulsions, like thinking about things inside of your head, stuff like that, trying to undo things in your head. But for the most part, it's just obsessions, and there's nothing really compulsive about it. So that's pure OCD. And before I even move on to anything else, I want to shout out one of my favorite YouTubers, Jasmine Garcia, because she's the actual reason why I'm here today knowing that I have OCD. If I did not watch one of her videos, I don't know if I would have known at this point, because she is the person who introduced me to a form of OCD that's not like the standard OCD that you see on like Glee and all these kinds of other, media websites and movies and all that kind of stuff. So basically what she said is she had pure OCD, which let me just look up a basic definition for that really quick as well. Okay, so here's the definition for pure O. Pure OCD is a form of OCD marked by intrusive, unwanted, and uncontrollable thoughts or obsessions, While some experiencing pure O may not engage in obvious behaviors related to their intrusive thoughts, such as counting, arranging, hand washing, the disorder is instead accompanied by hidden mental rituals. So, yep, that's exactly what I thought. So, yeah, basically, it's like it's OCD, but instead of having like outward compulsions, like, you know, touching something a certain amount of times or touching it until it feels just right, instead, you're doing it inside your mind. And I feel like this happens a lot when you like kind of grow up in a society, or like we all grow up in a society, honestly, but when you kind of are used to like hiding your feelings or hiding the, like you're used to like accommodating and like fitting into things and stuff like that, and you don't want to like feel like ashamed, or you don't want to feel like embarrassed and stuff like that, so you find a way to control it and keep it inside your mind. But that doesn't mean that it's any less impactful to the person with pure OCD or the people around them either. Because, for example, let's say you're watching a movie, right? And this happens to me all the time, so I can express this. Let's say you're watching a movie, right? You're watching Mulan, the live action movie. All of a sudden, a thought pops into your head. You have a thought that comes into your mind, right? And then all of a sudden, you can't even think about anything else. All you're thinking about is that intrusive thought. Then somebody's like, okay, like when you think about something really hard, like I want you to like film yourself doing a mathematical equation that's really hard. You can't help but to see the look on your face. You're gonna be like straining, you're gonna be like confused, and like you're gonna be like, it's gonna be automatic worry on your face. Like you can't really hide it, especially when it's something that you feel is urgent to yourself. So you know, people are gonna notice it. Even if you don't have too many outward expressions that to show it, your face is probably going to be a really good teller of it. People are going to notice it. People are going to wondering why you're not paying attention to the movie. You might have questions about the movie, the part that you missed when you were, you know, thinking these intrusive thoughts, and they might not tell you. They may get mad. You know, it's all these kind of scenarios that happen that you never really even think about until it happens to you or somebody that you know. So I just wanted to like come on here and kind of like shed some light onto like all the different types of OCD and that there are, because honey child, it is not just cleaning, it is not just hand washing, and it is not just what is the other one that they always say, hand washing, cleaning, and counting or something like that. So yeah, so that's basically just one type of OCD that you may not have known about. So before I get into like my life story and what I've personally gone through with OCD and my OCD journey, I just want to list off a couple other things, because I know there might be people watching this video that may not even know that they have OCD or may have symptoms of OCD, and this video might actually help someone and help them actually like get a diagnosis and get actual attention and help for it. Because if I had not watched Jasmine Garcia's video back in 2016, 2017, I don't know if I would be here today in the same place telling this story still, because I don't know if I would still know that I have OCD or not. So I'm going to go through a couple of different types of OCD that you may not have known about. And if any of these kind of relate to you, definitely, like, I know it's hard to kind of see any kind of like doctor right now with COVID going on, but definitely try to look into it and see someone at your earliest convenience. Because I really just want to see the world get better at mental health stigmatization and everything like that. I really just want to see people not have to struggle from it. You know, it is hard. So I'm just going to list off some of the kind of unknown symptoms and unknown types of OCD that you guys may not have known about. I'm going to start with the first one that I've been struggling with for a long time, and that is scrupulosity, otherwise known as religious OCD. So, scrupulosity, I'm just going to use my own words to define it, because I don't really need a definition. I know a lot about it at this point. It's basically a type of OCD where you're obsessed. You're in fear of, you know, upsetting whatever religious religious god or religious figure that you believe in. You're obsessed of like the anti-Christ, or you're obsessed with like the anti of whatever that figure is that you believe in, if you have one. Like, it's just you're obsessed with it. You're like, your biggest fear is that you're gonna like go to hell, or you're gonna, you know, upset, you know, God, or you're gonna do something wrong. Like, that's your biggest fear. For me, it kind of manifested in a way more of the fear of the devil, more than it was the fear of like God, more than it was the fear of upsetting God for me. I it's hard to explain really. I'll just kind of start explaining how it started. So um when I was in high school, right? Well, okay, I'll take you all the way back to middle school. Actually, when I was in middle school, I had some stuff going on, and that's when the OCD really started to like come in. OCD really starts to come into play around like adolescence and like adulthood. I feel like there's actually a lower chance of a child having OCD than it is an adult. I believe the statistics are right now that 1 in every 40 people have OCD, but 1 in every 200 children have OCD. So the rate for children are actually a lot lower. So it usually like I guess activates in the brain or whatever at around adolescence and adulthood. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. But basically, when I was in middle school, there was some stuff happening, and I don't want to go into it too much right now. Maybe in another video. But that's when the OCD really started to start for me. It was more of a being fearful of certain things and certain people and stuff like that. And so then it kind of transformed in high school when we started reading the story in my literature class about the devil, and I was really scary. I don't want to go into it because it might trigger something again that I don't want to relive. I really don't. I know I'm laughing about it, but it's not funny, but it's just like my way of coping with things. But yeah, it's just like it had a story basically about the Antichrist, and it scared me a lot, and it kind of triggered this thing in me where I started being really fearful, really scared of the devil, scared that I was like gonna, or like he was gonna try to hurt me or some way, scared that he was gonna try to hurt my family or do bad things to me just to try to like wear me down and to make me like not believe in God anymore, basically is what was happening in my mind. And so that's was something that I was really afraid of. Really, it affected my life for so many years. It still does to this day, but I've gotten a lot better. I've come a long, 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 long way. I'm just gonna list some of the symptoms and some of the obsessions and compulsions that I had. Well, I already listed the obsessions, but I'm gonna list some of the compulsions that I had. It's going to be kind of hard to explain them, and it's going to be kind of hard to say it because I've never really said it to anyone that doesn't have OCD or that's not my therapist. So it might sound really strange, but please try to keep an open mind. So basically, one of the OCD compulsions that I would do was one of the fears, basically. That I would have in my mind is it's almost like in Harry Potter, right? I don't watch Harry Potter. I didn't watch all the Harry Potter movies, but I do know this about Harry Potter, right? You're not supposed to say Voldemort's name because it's supposed to like bring attention to him, or it's supposed to like do something like you don't want to say his name. It's like this taboo, like not even taboo, like it's this scary thing that you're not supposed to say ever. So for me, the keywords for me were obviously devil, and then any other kind of other forms of his name. So Lucifer, Satan, all that kind of stuff would literally cause. As I'm speaking right now, I can feel like the heat in my body rising. Like it still affects me to this day, but I've gotten a lot better with it. But it would get to the point where my mind would block out. It would literally block out into like a panic attack mode for like minutes, for literally minutes, and it would take me a long time to calm myself down to get back to reality. um so like, and I don't want to go too much into like what was going on. I just it's hard to like talk about it without talking about it. I'm just gonna get right down to the nitty gritty, okay? Because if this video can help one person, then I don't mind sharing this story. I'm probably gonna delete the video that has my face in it because at this point I really just want to help somebody. But I did chose not to film this video with my face in it because I don't really want, like, I'm scared, I don't want people to judge me in my real life that I know and stuff like that because they don't understand it. But it's just like basically, so in my head I would hear the word devil, and I would have to reverse it. I would have to undo it by saying God. Let's say I heard the word Satan. I would have to undo it by saying God or Jesus Christ. Like I literally had to say that in my mind as a response. And I felt like that was doing something. Like I felt like that was making me safe again when I said that word inside my head. Sometimes I would say it out loud too. It just depends on like how severe I was feeling in the moment. And that's really what was going on for a long time. And that was just one of my symptoms. I had a lot of other symptoms. I had problems with shutting doors. I would have to shut the door over and over and over again until it felt just right, which is another type of OCD called just right OCD. It's basically like, if you can imagine, like somebody has to close the door 7 times. Instead of it being 7 times, it's literally however many times it takes until you get it right. And a good movie that actually shows this and portrays this accurately is actually The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. It's really good. I really refer that movie to everyone that wants to learn more about OCD. But anyways, so that is basically like what would go on in my head. And then I would have to shut the door as many times as it took to get it right. There's a really good documentary done by BBC about OCD, and they have these kids, these like I think they're like young adults to kids, and they go on this little camping trip, and they work on exposing themselves to all their fears that they have with OCD. And it was a really amazing video for me to watch, because it just showed me like I can do it. Like I can honestly get over my fears, get over this obsession. So yeah, I would shut the door multiple times. If I had a thought, a negative thought, a thought about the devil, anything like that, while I was putting on something, like I was putting on my shirt, I was putting on my jeans, I was putting on my socks or my shoes, I would have to take it all the way off, all the way over again, and put it back on. But this time I had to think really hard not to say that word. And obviously when you're thinking hard not to think a word or say a word, you're gonna think it. You know, it's more than just the word too. It's kind of like a feeling. And so if I get that feeling of like this danger or something like bad, I had to do it all over again. And you could imagine how that causes problems, right? When I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to school in high school, and it takes me 5 times to get my pants on because I'm taking them on and off again, that's going to be a problem. My mom was yelling at me. She didn't understand what was taking me so long to get ready, and it caused a lot of fights. She didn't really understand. Obviously, who would understand? It's kind of something that you wouldn't really understand unless you went through it yourself or you knew about it through some other source, which is exactly why I'm doing this video right now. But yeah, so I just wanted to get really real with you guys, really just kind of dive in deep about all the different types of OCD. That are just a couple things of OCD. Now, the pulling the pants and the shutting the door, that is not a scrupulosity. That actually is just right OCD, but it also has to do with scrupulosity, because the thought that was triggering it was the scrupulosity, the religious OCD. So that is one type of OCD. Another type of OCD that is common is actually called harm OCD, and it's when it's basically when you have a fear of harming other people, harming people close to you, maybe especially, or just anybody in general. I know people in my personal life that they can't really drive a car that well, or they can't really drive a car too often, because they're literally obsessively scared that they accidentally ran over somebody, and they have to look back and check like every 5 seconds. It's literally a thing, guys. Like, it literally impacts your life so much. It's not even funny. It's this fear in their head that's telling them they're a bad person, they're going to hurt somebody on purpose or by accident or whatever the case may be. And so that's harm OCD. That's another type of OCD that you may not know about. And I personally have never really struggled with this myself, but I do know people in my life that do have this. So I thought I would just drop that in there, because it is something that's a little bit unknown to people outside of the OCD community. Another one is sexual orientation OCD. Now, I actually have to look this up on my phone because I'm not too well versed on this subject. So let me go ahead and look this up. Okay, so first I'm going to read a little definition about sexual orientation OCD, and then I'm going to read like a little excerpt from somebody about it that'll kind of help you understand it a little bit more. So let's go ahead and find a definition for it. So for sexual orientation OCD. All right, so sexual orientation OCD, sometimes referred to as a homosexual OCD, is a subset of OCD in which sufferers constantly question their sexuality. It's estimated that 10% of people with OCD have this specific subset. A sexual orientation OCD sufferer can obsess about being homosexual, heterosexual, or anything in between. They engage in major introspection to determine their sexuality or sexual orientation. This constant questioning can be alarming, confusing, and very anxiety-inducing. Common sexual orientation OCD obsessions are number one, fear that you're gay when you're actually straight or vice versa. Number two, constantly questioning your sexuality. Number three, a fear of sending out signals that make you seem gay or straight depending on sexual preference. Okay, and now some other compulsions. So those are the obsessions. Now here are some compulsions that may be common in sexual orientation OCD. Number one is avoidance. You stop dating, attending events, or going out to social gatherings altogether. Number two, looking at someone or a picture of someone of the same sex and determining whether you have a sexual or emotional response. Number three, questioning, becoming confused when you see someone of the same sex and think they're attractive. Number four, reassurance, which is very common in OCD. Reassurance is a very common compulsion in OCD. But let me just read this off really quick. Reassurance. Number four, looking at photos of the opposite sex to confirm that your sexual desires are aligned with what you know to be true. So now that we have that, I'm just going to actually read a little excerpt from somebody as well that explains it a little bit better for you guys. So you guys can kind of understand like the mindset and like where they're coming from with it. All right, so I'm just going to read it directly from the website. It says, if you don't suffer from this form of OCD, you may wonder why someone would fear a change in sexual orientation with the same intensity they might fear catching a disease or harming someone. In fact, it might appear offensive to some to even put such fears in the same category, given that one orientation or another is not intrinsically harmful. It's important to remember that the person suffering from sexual orientation OCD is no more or less homophobic than anyone else, but that the underlying fear of being or becoming another orientation is really a fear of losing one's identity and living in an unauthentic life of deception. People with sexual orientation OCD often struggle with significant shame for the content of their obsessions, especially because they harbor no particular ill will towards the LGBTQ plus community, but nonetheless live in horror of being or becoming something that they are not. The experience of living with any form of untreated OCD can be painfully devastating, regardless of the specific content of the obsession. I agree with that 100%. So yeah, that is a little excerpt from somebody on this subject as well. So I hope that helped you guys explain. I hope that helped you guys understand that a little bit better. So yeah, that is another form of OCD that you may not have known about. I'm going to go into two more types of OCD that you may not know about. The first is going to be magical thinking OCD. So this is something that I struggle with a lot. So the definition for magical thinking OCD, let's go ahead and bring it up. So here we go, magical thinking OCD. Those with obsessive compulsive disorder feel like they have an expanded sense of responsibility to themselves and others. People with OCD may think they have the power to prevent bad things from happening or from harming others or themselves, or may believe that their thoughts can cause or prevent events from occurring in real life. So this is actually something really common in OCD, and especially in the magical thinking community of OCD. It's called thought action fusion, and it's the idea that if you think something, it's going to cause the action in real life to happen. Basically think that you have the power to like really control what happens just by thinking. This gets really messy with the law of attraction and manifest destiny and manifestation, because the first kind of I'll just share this with you. The first little bit of OCD that I experienced in my life was around 15 years old, and that's when I started getting into the law of attraction and manifestation. I read this book. It was like some kind of immortal vampire kind of book, and they were talking about manifestation. I started doing it because I wanted to get an iPod for Christmas, and it started out like that, and then it started as me trying to protect myself from people protect myself from like kidnappers and strangers and stuff like that. And so I would obsessively think about it and make sure that it wouldn't come true, just by thinking the manifestation in my head. And that was like the first type of OCD that I actually experienced. So for a long time, I really was salty for a long time when I heard the law of attraction and manifestation. I was like, oh, that's just a load of bull. Like, you know, like it's just gonna, if you have OCD, it's just gonna trigger it. Like I feel like I feel like it can trigger OCD very easily. That kind of thinking, that thought action fusion kind of thinking, is very easily to slip into OCD. That's what I thought in my head. Since then, I've kind of changed my mind on that a little bit. I believe that it does do a lot of good for a lot of people, and I'm glad that that helps a lot of people. But I believe that it may as well not be the best, for people with magical thinking OCD and with OCD in general. So that's just one little thing that I wanted to add. Let's keep reading. This is referred to as magical thinking. So all of this is referred to as magical thinking and allows people with OCD to feel safer and in more control, regardless of how illogically or irrationally their thoughts or behaviors are perceived by themselves and others. So that's perfect. That's literally the perfect definition. Like it's literally just you like wanting some way to have control over what's happening to you and to other people in your life, and you feel like with magical thinking that you can actually do that, no matter how irrational it is. And that's another thing I want to point out with OCD. People with OCD, we're not illogical or irrational. It's not like I actually think, you know, that I'm gonna drive my car and that I just hit somebody, I have to look back every 5 seconds. It's not that I actually think that it's not that I actually felt a bump, or it's not that I have hallucinations like I accidentally felt a bump or I actually saw myself running over someone. That's not what happens. And that's not what it is. There's no hallucinations whatsoever, with OCD, at least not OCD by itself. And so it's not like we're irrational either. It's basically just like, it's the what if. It's like, okay, I know low key, maybe even high key, that this is not real, that I cannot control something just by thinking a thought in my head. But what if I could? And what if I didn't do it and then something really bad happened to me or somebody that I love? And that's the thought process that happens in your mind when you do these things, when you have OCD. So just want to say that as well. So let's keep reading. And so, yeah, that is one more form that I just wanted to put out there really quick for you guys. And the last form of OCD that I want to address is called Tourettic OCD. So I'm not sure like how, I don't want to say legitimate, but how like studied this is, to see if it's like an actual thing or if it's just some kind of thing in between that doesn't really have anything to do with either of them. I don't really know, honestly, but what I can identify with, I identify with it a lot, and it's called Tourettic OCD. So if you know what Tourette's is, you know what OCD is, you can kind of put them together and kind of get an imagination of what Tourettic OCD is like. Tourettic OCD is basically when, I'm just going to explain it how it works for me. So I'll have this feeling, right? I have this feeling, this urge, like I'll have this feeling, I'll be talking on the phone, I'll be making dinner, whatever I'm doing at the time, and I'll have this feeling come over me like I have to do something right then and there. I have to put my arm out, I have to twitch my eye, I have to do something in that moment, or else something bad's gonna happen, or just in general, like I have to do it in that moment and there's no what else or if about it. It's gotten to the point sometimes where it's just an automatic thing that happens for me. I don't even think about doing it, I just automatically do it, and before I can even think about stopping myself, I've already done it. You know what I'm saying? This is one of the main things I'm struggling with right now, actually, is Tourettic OCD. It's basically where you have like a tic, or some kind of like a tic, I guess is the best way to say it, because it's not really a compulsion. It's more like a fast, sudden movement, or something that's a movement that you do like all the time, or I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's basically like a tic, and it could be verbal, it could be it could be verbal, could be with like hand motions, anything like that. And this, so that is basically the Tourettic OCD. Now there's a lot of other things that go into it as well. I'll link a video down below that explains it really well, because I can't even remember everything that he said, but when he was saying it, I was like, yep, that's me. Yep, I agree. I check, that's me. So I'll link that down below if that helps anybody. But basically what he was trying to say is that you're holding a pencil, right? and all of a sudden your mind is like, you know what, you need to hold this pencil up a little bit, like a little bit higher. You need to hold it to a higher degree, and you hold it to the higher degree, and it's like you turn it all the way to the point that your wrist is literally hurting from turning it so hard in your hand. And you know, you just have to do it. Like it's like this kind of like, it's this kind of energy that you have to release by doing the tick, if that makes any sense. And so that's another form of OCD, I guess you could say. And I know it kind of sounds like it's Tourette's in a way and not really anything to do with OCD, but it does stem from OCD obsessions and stuff like that. So at least for me, it does. So that's why they call it Tourettic OCD. And so that's basically all the different types of OCD that you may not have known about, that I just wanted to shed some light on if you guys didn't know about it. If you guys want to know more about this, I definitely will make more videos about this in the future, and I will link some videos. And this is something I'm really like passionate about, is like getting advocacy and awareness for OCD, because it really does affect a lot of people, more than people would think. You know, they see Emma Pillsbury on Glee and think that they've seen it all. Well, you haven't. Let me be the first one to tell you, you haven't. So, you know, it's just, you know, and it's not, I try not to get too offended when I hear people say, oh, I'm so OCD, or, ooh, my OCD is flaring up when I saw this, or when I did this. I know that they're not trying to like belittle OCD or like make it seem like it's just this cute little, like quirky little relatable thing to have. Like, I know that's not what they're trying to do. I know that they don't have bad intentions with it, you know, so I try not to get mad about it. But if you guys can help it, like, try not to say I'm so OCD. Try not to say, oh, my OCD is flaring up, or ooh, this is just triggering my OCD, if you know you really don't actually have OCD. The common type of OCD that everyone thinks about is basically like the germophobic OCD person that's washing their hands 24/7, all that kind of stuff. That is just as real, and that is just as valid as every one of these other things that I've listed here today, and it happens a lot. But it's not the only kind. It's not the only type of OCD, and it's not the only thing that's going on in the OCD community. So I just wanted to shed some light on some of the other stuff that's happening. But yeah, just try not to say I'm so OCD, because it really does. It's not even that it belittles it. The problem that I have with it is that it's almost always referred to when it's something about orderliness or cleanliness. And that's not the only type of OCD that is out there in the world today. So, like, if you're constantly hearing I'm so OCD, I had to organize my books last night, or I'm so OCD, like this is so unorganized, I have to fix it. Like, it makes you think, if you don't know any other type of OCD, you're going to think that that's the only type of OCD that there is, because that's the only thing you've ever known. And so for 9 years, I think I might have touched on this earlier, but for 9 years, I literally had no idea that I had OCD, because the type of OCD that I had was more like the religious OCD and those kind of stuff, magical thinking, just right, Tourettic OCD, all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't know that it was OCD. I just thought I was this weird person that was just the only person in the world, besides one person that I found on a forum one time on the internet when I searched my symptoms, that had this. And when I found that one person on the internet, I was like, so, like, it was like, whoa, like, am I really not the only person? Because I remember searching this specifically. I remember specifically searching this because it was the only time that I ever heard of it before I knew that I had OCD. I looked at my symptoms and I heard somebody say, and it said, when somebody says the word death, I have to think of the word life, or otherwise I'm going to have a panic attack. I have to think of it to counteract it. And I felt so, I like literally broke down and cried, because it was like the one time that I actually found somebody that was doing something similar to what I was doing. So basically, yeah, it does kind of cause a problem, because it belittles it. Not only that, but it makes it seem like that's the only type of OCD that there is out there. Because you don't hear somebody like, being afraid of the devil, or being afraid that they upset God and being like, oh my God, I'm so OCD, I feel like I just prayed for 10 hours to make sure God wasn't upset with me. Like, that's not the kind of stuff that you're going to hear. So that's the kind of stuff that you're going to think that OCD is, and it's not what it all is. You know, that's not everything that it is. So yeah, that's basically just what I wanted to share with you guys today. Sorry if it was kind of long. I wanted to try to keep it as positive and informative as possible. I didn't want to keep it like all like negative or anything like that. I just wanted to bring some awareness to it, and I wanted to shed some light on it. It is OCD Awareness Week after all, and I've been wanting to make a video like this ever since I found out I had OCD. So I figured, why not now? Now's the perfect time. You know, now's the time. So I decided I'm gonna make the video. And yeah, I hope this really like helped some of you guys out. You know my name, Inworld. If you're watching this and you play Second Life, my name Inworld is Junejewels. If you don't play Second Life and you happen to stumble upon this video, just reach out to me in the comments maybe, or I'll link my Instagram down below in the description box, so that you can message me a private message in there as well if you have any questions about it. I'm not a therapist by any means or a psychiatrist, but I do have a lot of experience with it, and I do have a lot of knowledge on the subject because I have done a lot of research about it. So if you guys do have any questions, want to know about it, definitely hit me up. I'm there for all of you. If you have any suspicions, definitely contact me if you feel comfortable to do so. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and letting me talk and explain all of this to you, the crazy world of obsessive compulsive disorder. So yeah, I hope you guys, well, not that you enjoyed it, but I hope you guys learned something from this. Said Tyra Banks. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye, Pixel friends.